Number 15. Anti-Gravity Machine. The creator of Coral Castle in Florida, Ed Lee Skulnish, also built himself the odd anti-gravity machine pictured here. Lee Skulnish was an eccentric man, so when it came to piecing together the 28-ton monument to an unrequited love, he did so at night in order that his methods would go unknown. The 5-foot, 100-pound man is said to have used everything from supernatural abilities to reverse magnetism to piece the thing together. I think I have figured out how they built the pyramids, he said. The device in question is even more mysterious. Some think it was used to levitate the stones. Ed was known to be a member of the Masons, and the machine was covered with Masonic symbols, which may indicate the occult was somehow involved. Although the strange machine looks interesting, no one knows if it ever worked or what it was used for, except for eccentric Ed. Number 14. The Mad Trapper of Rat River. This sinister photograph of the remains of the fugitive known as the Mad Trapper of Rat River needs some explaining. The photograph was sent out by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to uncover the fugitive's identity. The Mad Trapper was a pseudonym for the man who, after arriving in Fort McPherson, allegedly proceeded to tamper with native trappers' traps, hanging them up in trees. When approached by two constables about the issue, the trapper refused to speak with them. They returned with a search warrant, but a confrontation broke out. The next time they returned, it was with a posse of 9 men and 42 dogs. They also came with 20 pounds of dynamite, which they tossed in to collapse the building. However, the Mad Trapper came out on the offense again, and the posse fled again. They returned to find that the trapper had made his escape. When they eventually found him and had him surrounded, he again came out on the offense and, this time, got Constable Edgar Millen in the heart. The posse retreated again, but they returned stronger. Realizing the trapper was headed towards the Yukon, the mounted police blocked off the 2 passes over the Richardson Mountains. But guess what? The trapper scaled the 7,000-foot peak and vanished. He managed to elude his pursuers for a time by disguising his footprints with caribou tracks. In the end, the RCMP never discovered the Mad Trapper's identity, and they never discovered if he was actually the man responsible for tampering with the traps. Number 13. The Great Norwegian Mountain Troll. You've heard of the Yeti. You've heard of the Loch Ness Monster, but have you heard of the Great Norwegian Mountain Troll? A flight crew above the RAF Recon Flight 300 has, but when the crew set off in December of 1942, little did they know their flight would capture photographic evidence of the giant mythical troll, which would prove to many believers that the monster was no myth at all. Evidence of giants has appeared in various publications, including a giant finger stretching 38 centimeters or 15 inches, which was discovered in 1988, and a gigantic footprint found in 1912 by an explorer in Africa. But those fossils seem to indicate that giants lived centuries ago, not now. This photographic evidence, however, seems to suggest that they're still prowling the earth today. Some call the photograph proof that mountain trolls exist, others believe it's simply a hoax. Number 12. Falcon Lake Incident. An image from 1967 has boggled the minds of theorists since May 20th, 1967. That's when Stefan McCulloch from Winnipeg, Canada, took a vacation to Whiteshell Provincial Park, where he was in search of quartz near Falcon Lake. He left his hotel at 5:30 a.m. on May 19th and came across some of the precious rocks around 9 a.m. It wasn't until after 12 p.m. that McCulloch heard it, a sound somewhat like the noise geese make, but according to McCulloch, the source of the noise wasn't geese. Right before him, he saw a pair of flying objects landing at about 45 degrees and appearing more oval as they neared the ground. According to McCulloch, one of the flying objects landed on a rock nearby, while the other hovered in the air. The hovering object stopped above him, turning gray, before it headed west and vanished. The flying object that had landed simultaneously turned gray and shot off violet rays of light. While inspecting the object, He got near enough to the circular grid of the aircraft's exhaust vent to acquire the burns pictured in the photo. He put out the fire made by the exhaust and immediately fell ill. He was able to drive himself to the hospital, where his family doctor recorded that McCulloch was confused and dazed, but rational. He had circular marks on his stomach and chest, in line with the burns, and also lost weight and developed fainting spells. The Royal Police couldn't verify McCulloch's claims, and the mystery remains unsolved to this day. Number 11. The Masked Suspect. 24-year-old Kajevia Globe vanished on December 11th, 2016. Detroit police later released this photo of the masked suspect, who was said to be driving her car and using her ATM card. Not long after, a body suspected to be Globe's was found in a neighbor's trash can. Globe's ex-boyfriend was later convicted of the incident, according to Fox 2 News. As Brack was given a minimum of 70 years, the judge noted his lack of remorse and called him despicable, insensitive, and selfish, as he was seen smiling during that verdict. And the last 10 years of that sentence, he said, "That's for that smile." Number 10. Specimens at the Asylum. The photograph of the specimen stone at the State of Ohio Asylum for the Insane's Yard puts into question what exactly happened at this asylum, as one of the oldest spots at the mental health hospital where patients were buried. Names appear on 75 headstones, patient numbers on others, and lastly, 2 graves with only the word specimens engraved across them. What does that mean? Are these just body parts? Test subjects? Number 9. Backseat Passenger. Paranormal boards love this mysterious photograph. Taken in England in 1959, the story goes that Mabel Chinnery was on her way to visit her mother's gravesite when she decided to photograph her husband in the driver's seat of the car. He was the only person in the vehicle at the time, but when Mabel had the photo developed, who was in the backseat of the car but Ellen Hamill herself? Mabel's mother. Nothing short of freaky. Skeptics tend to believe the photo was simply a double exposure, but one blogger, Blake Smith of Skeptic.com, points out an excerpt that counters this assumption. The Chronicles of the Strange and Mysterious notes, in fact, it was the last frame of a film on which Mabel had photographed the old lady's grave. Perhaps the Chinnerys actually did get a final shot of Mother Hamill. Number 8. A thigh bone on Mars. Space photographs can be sort of the most mystifying and cryptic because we know so little about what is out there. That means everything in outer space is more mysterious than the known things on Earth. But what happens when we come across something that looks Earth-like on a foreign planet? That's what happened on Mars when the 1-ton NASA Curiosity rover seemed to come across a thigh bone. The rover had been researching Mars since August 2012, and when it put out 2 photos of what appeared to be a hip bone and thigh bones poking from the dusty surface, the photos went viral. This led many to suggest that life once existed on Mars, and that we now have evidence of this. NASA claims the object in question was just weathered rock, but theorists insist otherwise. Number 7. 3 men and a baby ghost. Don't know about you, but when I was younger, I watched this fun little 80s flick called 3 Men and a Baby, but it wasn't all fun and games. Little did I know, it would soon give me chills. An hour into the movie, Jack, played by Ted Danson, crosses the apartment alongside his mom and the baby in question, but if you watch carefully behind him, standing between the curtains, eerily still, is a child dressed in black and white. After much rewinding and replaying, it only gets spookier and more spine-tingling. Who is this boy? What is he doing there? Snopes.com have said that it was actually something more mundane, a cardboard Ted Danson. Others claim that a member of the production staff had a child who took his life on set. Another suggested that this was an actual apartment, and one of the previous residents' children had passed in it. Number 6. Unexplained astronaut. In 1964, A photograph was taken by Jim Templeton, a photographer, historian, and fireman, a photo which became known as the Solway Firth Spaceman. Templeton photographed his 5-year-old daughter on a trip to the Burgh Marsh near Solway Firth in Cumbria, England. Although the photographer says no one was around when he took the photo, an astronaut appears to be peeking out in the background over his daughter's right shoulder. Kodak verified that the photo was genuine, and Templeton claims he didn't see the astronaut until the photos were developed. Number 5. The JFK Babushka. Conspiracy surrounding the JFK incident range of government plots. One of them seems to support the KGB theory because it involves the Babushka lady pictured in film accounts of the incident in 1963 at Dallas's Dealey Plaza. Eyewitnesses claim the Babushka lady, titled that for the headscarf worn by the woman, which is commonly worn by old Russian women, was taking pictures while the event occurred. She also left the scene pretty quickly, crossing Elm Street and merging into the crowd at the grassy knoll. Although she was spotted in the film, her face was obscured by the camera she was holding. The Babushka lady was never positively identified, so the mystery and the conspiracy theories that surround the event remain. Number 4. Time-traveling man. The Community Memories Investment Program put out a digitized photo that soon blew the internet's mind. The exhibit in question illustrated the history of the community through photos and written accounts. One of the photos in this digital history exhibit stood out like a sore thumb. It was titled, "Their Past Lives Here." The photo from 1941 was taken at the reopening of the South Forks Bridge. Gold Bridge, British Columbia, the neighboring mining community, had been flooded the year before. In the photo, spectators are viewing the reopening, everyone dressed in 40s garb, hats, ties, suit jackets, everyone, apart from one hip young man dressed in a jersey and sunglasses. Not only does the man's wardrobe look out of place, but he's also cradling a modern camera, its straps slung around his neck. Was the man simply ahead of his time, or is he, as the online community suggests, a time traveler? The historical photographs circled the globe and, yet we'll probably never know whether this man was hip or time traveling, or whether the photo is real or fabricated. Number 3. Cooper family photo. Most of us have seen photos with ghostly specters, but there's none so frightening as the dangling man in the Cooper family photo. In Texas in the 1950s, the Cooper family moved into an old house they believed was devoid of all things haunted, but they were wrong. On their very first night in the house, Mr. Cooper photographed Mrs. Cooper and her mom with the 2 Cooper kids in their laps at the dining room table. The smiling group didn't notice the ghostly figure that hung upside down beside them, that is, until the photo was developed. The body of the figure appeared to be hanging or falling upside down behind them. Obviously, as the story goes, it was a ghost, but whose? Some believe the photo is real and the story is true. Like most mysterious photographs, however, others try to debunk the image by suggesting Photoshop or other image manipulation had a hand in its creation. Whether or not the photo is real, it certainly is chilling, and the story, the details, where those came from, no one knows. Number 2. Orbital Mystery. This orbital mystery has been floating around the internet for a while. According to the online community, a 13,000-year-old object called the Black Knight has been orbiting the Earth for years and years. Some claim that NASA has sent astronauts to inspect the object, which is allegedly a satellite that has been sending signals to Earth. The existence of this satellite is known to few Earthlings, at least it was, prior to the internet and the release of this photograph. No one knows what this orbital mystery actually is, but some of the more practically inclined online investigators believe it's simply space debris. Whatever the case, it sure looks ominous, and calling it the Black Knight only makes it more so. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Also, I recently created a subreddit where you can submit videos and stories for future lists. It's r/chillsnarrator, and the link is in the description below. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, then hit that subscribe button because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. If English isn't the only language you speak and you're interested in getting a shout out, click more, then add translations. By translating the video, not only will more people be able to watch it, but a link to your channel will be added in the description. Number 1. Michael Rockefeller's fate. The Rockefeller name is synonymous with money and power, and for good reason. The family made one of the largest fortunes in the 19th and 20th centuries after investing in the oil business. They are known as one of the top, if not the top, banking, industrial, and political families in America. That's why what may have happened to a missing member of the family may come as a surprise. In 1961, Michael Rockefeller, a fourth-generation member of the powerful dynasty, disappeared in Papua New Guinea. At 23 years old, he was there as an art collector. He wanted to find rare primitive art in the remote areas of the country, but instead, his life may have ended there in a dark way. This photograph shows a Caucasian man amongst a tribe of native Papua New Guineans. The photo was taken in 1969, 8 years after Michael had gone missing. The footage was captured on Cine camera. It spans across some 17 canoes, and amongst the faces of the tribe, one bearded Caucasian face is mixed in. This leads many to believe that Michael Rockefeller never passed on, as he was purported to have done after his boat capsized years earlier, an event that resulted in the largest manhunt in the South Pacific. Instead, he may have lived amongst the tribesmen for nearly a decade. A new documentary retraces Rockefeller's steps from his life as a Harvard-educated member of the Manhattan Dynasty to the remote provinces of Papua New Guinea, his journey to the jungle swampland in search of intricate wooden sculptures of the Asmat tribe, which were often covered in the red liquid of their victims, led to the mysterious circumstances of his fate. Now imagine a recent Harvard grad, pampered since birth, entering into this place. Rockefeller was certainly out of his element. Still, he was fascinated, and he often wrote home to his father to express his amazement at the culture he'd discovered and the artworks he'd acquired. That is, until one day in November 1961, when he was floating the coast in an area of thick rainforest near mangrove swamp and mud flats filled with crocodiles. This is where his catamaran capsized. They were 9 miles from the shore when it happened. The boat's 2 local guides started swimming towards the coast for help, while Rockefeller and a Dutchman clung to the bit of catamaran that remained at the surface. Rockefeller didn't stay the night, however. He grew impatient and decided to swim towards land, with 2 jerry cans keeping him buoyant. His last words, "I think I can make it." Sadly, if he had stayed with the Dutchman, he may have made it out just fine. His companion was found the following day, while Michael's father was forced to send in an army to search for his boy. Well, not really an army, but near enough. He put a media spotlight on the search, chartered a Boeing 707, planes, helicopters, ships, and thousands of locals searching for Michael. 10 days after he'd gone missing, he was presumed to have passed. Still, the rumor was that he'd survived. In 1968, Milt Mochlin, a New York magazine editor, decided to look into this rumor. He went to Papua New Guinea and met with a Dutch missionary who had been on the island when Rockefeller had vanished. The missionary told Mochlin that tribes had said they'd caught and took the American's life. Dutch officials claimed another rumor had been going around that Rockefeller was still alive. Caucasian men were seen by some tribes as magical and powerful, so the likelihood of him being taken is possible. Mochlin sent Malcolm Kirk into the Asmat region to take photographs. He is the photographer who took the aforementioned footage, but it sat in a warehouse for upwards of 40 years before the documentarian Fraser Heston dug it up. 15 reels of uncut film, which serves as the basis for his documentary, The Search for Michael Rockefeller. This shot of a bearded, light-skinned Caucasian paddling in a canoe full of Ozma warriors begs more questions than it answers, Houston says, mentioning that Ozma tribesmen didn't wear beards. The resemblance to Michael Rockefeller, an accomplished canoeist who wore a beard, is obvious. So did Michael Rockefeller pass on, or did he assimilate into the Ozma culture? This mysterious photograph seems to suggest he lived, but who knows for how long. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!